everyone. We're going to continue with Charlotte's Web today. Today we're going to be reading chapter 16, Off to the Fair. Here we go. The night before the county fair, everybody went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8. Avery lay dreaming that the Ferris wheel had stopped at the top and he was in the top car. Fern lay dreaming that she was getting sick in the swings. Lurvy was in bed by 8:30. He lay dreaming that he was throwing baseballs at a cloth cat and winning a genuine Navajo blanket. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed by 9. Mrs. Zuckerman lay dreaming about the deep freeze unit. Mr. Zuckerman lay dreaming about Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur had grown until he was 116 feet long and 92 feet high, and he had won the prizes at the fair and was covered in blue ribbons, even though the blue ribbon was tied to the end of his tail. So here's what he was dreaming, that he was bigger than the whole fair. Down in the barn cellar, the animals too went to sleep early, except Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day. Every creature planned to get up early to see Wilbur off to the great adventure. When morning came, everybody got up at daylight. The day was hot. Up the road at the Arable's house, Fern lugged a pail of hot water to her room and took a sponge bath. Then she put on her prettiest dress because she knew that she would see boys at the fair. Mrs. Arable scrubbed the back of Avery's neck and wet his hair and parted it and brushed it down hard until it stuck to the top of its head. All but about 6 hairs stood up straight. Avery put on clean underwear, clean blue jeans, and a clean shirt. Mr. Arable dressed, ate breakfast, and went out and polished his truck. He had offered to drive everybody to the fair, including Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate and lifted it into the pig pen. The crate was green. In gold letters, it said, Zuckerman's Famous Paint. Charlotte had her web looking fine for the occasion. Wilbur ate his breakfast slowly. He tried to look radiant without getting food in his ears. In the kitchen, Mrs. Zuckerman suddenly made an announcement. Homer, she said to her husband, I think I'm going to give that pig a buttermilk bath. A what? Said Mr. Zuckerman. A buttermilk bath. My grandmother used to bathe her pigs in buttermilk when they got dirty. I just remembered. Wilbur's not dirty, said Mr. Zuckerman proudly. He's filthy behind the ears, said Mrs. Zuckerman. Every time Lurvy slaps him, the food runs down around his ears. Then it dries and forms a crust. He also has a smudge on one side where he lays in his manure. He lays in clean straw, corrected Mr. Zuckerman. Well, he's dirty, and he's going to have a bath. Mr. Zuckerman sat down weakly and ate a donut. His wife went to the woodshed. When she returned, she wore rubber boots and an old raincoat and carried a bucket of buttermilk and a small wooden paddle. Edith, you're crazy, mumbled Zuckerman. But she paid no attention to him. Together they walked to the pig pen. Mrs. Zuckerman wasted no time. She climbed in with Wilbur and went to work. Dipping her paddle in the buttermilk, she rubbed him all over. The geese gathered around to see the fun, and so did the sheep and the lambs. Even Templeton poked his head out cautiously to watch Wilbur get a buttermilk bath. Charlotte got so interested, she lowered herself on a drag line so she could see better. Wilbur stood still and closed his eyes. He could feel the buttermilk trickling down his sides. He opened his mouth and some buttermilk ran in. It was delicious. He felt radiant and happy. When Mrs. Zuckerman got through and rubbed him dry, he was the cleanest, prettiest pig you've ever seen. He was pure white, pink around the ears and snout, and as smooth as silk. When the Zuckermans went up to change into their best clothes, Lurvy went to shave and put on a plaid shirt and his purple necktie. The animals were left to themselves in the barn. The 7 goslings paraded around and found their mother. Please, please, please take us to the fair, begged a gosling. Then all 7 began to go. Please, 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 please. They made quite a racket. Children, snapped the goose. We're staying quietly, idly at home. Only Wilbur, Elber is going to the fair. Just then, Charlotte interrupted. I shall go too, she said softly. I have decided to go with Wilbur. He may need me. We can't tell what may happen at the fairgrounds. Somebody's got to go who knows how to write, and I think Templeton better come too. I might need somebody to run some errands and do some general work. I'm staying right here, grumbled the rat. I haven't the slightest interest in fairs. That's because you've never been to one, remarked the sheep. A fair is a rat's paradise. Everybody spills food at the fair. A rat can creep around late at night and have a feast. In the horses' barn, you will find oats that the trotters and pacers have spilled. In the trampled grass of the infield, you will find old discarded lunch boxes containing foul remains of peanut butter sandwiches, hard-boiled eggs, cracker crumbs, bits of donuts, and particles of cheese. In the hard-packed dirt of the midway, after the glaring lights are out and the people have gone home to bed, you will find a veritable treasure of popcorn fragments, frozen custard dribblings, candy apples abandoned by children, sugar fluff crystals, salted almonds, popsicles, partially gnawed ice cream cones, and wooden sticks from lollipops. Everywhere is loot for rats, in tents, in boots, in haylofts. Why, the fair is enough disgusting leftover food to satisfy a whole army of rats. Templeton's eyes were blazing. Is that true? He asked. Is this appetizing yarn of yours true? I like high living, and what you say tempts me. It is true, said the old sheep. Go to the fair, Templeton. You will find the conditions at a fair will surpass your wildest dreams. Buckets with sour mash sticking to them, tin cans containing particles of tuna fish, greasy paper bags stuffed with rotten. That's enough, cried Templeton. Don't tell me any more. I'm going. Good, said Charlotte, winking at the old sheep. Now then, there is no time to be lost. Wilbur will soon be put in the crate. Templeton and I must go to the crate now and hide ourselves. The rat didn't waste a minute. He scampered over to the crate, crawled in between the slats, and put straw over him so that he was hidden from sight. All right, said Charlotte, I'm next. She sailed into the air, let out the drag line, and dropped gently to the ground. Then she climbed to the side of the crate and hid herself in a knothole at the top. The old sheep nodded. What a cargo, he said. That sign ought to say Zuckerman's famous pig and 2 stowaways. Look out, the people are coming, umming, shouted the gander. Cheese it, cheese it, cheese it. The big truck with Mr. Arable at the wheel backed slowly down the barnyard. Lurvy and Mr. Zuckerman walked alongside. Fern and Avery were standing in the body of the truck, hanging on to the sideboards. Listen to me, whispered the old sheep to Wilbur. When they open your crate and try to put you in, struggle. Don't go in without a tussle. Pigs always resist when they are being loaded. If I struggle, I'll get dirty, said Wilbur. Never mind that. Do as I say. Struggle. If you were to walk into the crate without resisting, Zuckerman might think that you are bewitched. He will be scared to go to the fair. Templeton poked his head up through the straw. Struggle if you must, he said, but kindly remember that I'm hiding down here in the crate, and I don't want to be stepped on or kicked in the face or pummeled or crushed in any way or squashed or buffeted about or bruised or lacerated or scarred or biffed. Just watch what you're doing, Mr. Radiant, when they get in to be shoving you. Be quiet, Templeton, said the sheep. Pull your hat away. They're coming. Look, Radiant Wilbur. Lay low, Charlotte. Talk it up, geese. The truck backed slowly down to the pig pen and stopped. Mr. Arable cut the motor, got out, walked around to the rear, and lowered the tailgate. The geese cheered. Mrs. Arable got out of the truck. Fern and Avery jumped to the ground. Mrs. Zuckerman came walking around from the house. Everybody lined up at the fence and stood for a moment admiring Wilbur and his beautiful green crate. Nobody realized that the crate already contained a rat and a spider. That's some pig, said Mrs. Arable. He's terrific, said Lurvy. He's very radiant, said Fern, remembering the day he was born. Well, said Mrs. Zuckerman, he's clean anyway. The buttermilk certainly helped. Mr. Zuckerman studied Wilbur carefully. Yes, he's a wonderful pig, he said. It's hard to believe that he was the runt of the litter. You get some extra good ham and bacon, Homer, when it comes time to kill that pig. Wilbur heard those words, and his heart almost stopped. I think I'm going to faint, he whispered to the old sheep who was watching. Kneel down, said the old sheep. Let the blood rush to your head. Wilbur sank to his knees, all radiance gone, his eyes closed. Look, screamed Fern, he's fading away. Hey, watch me, yelled Avery, crawling all over on all fours into the crate. I'm a pig, I'm a pig. Avery's foot touched Templeton in the straw. What a mess, thought the rat. What fantastic creatures boys are. Why did I let myself in for this? The geese saw Avery in the crate and cheered. Avery, you get out of the crate this instant, commanded his mother. What do you think you are? I'm a pig, said Avery, tossing handfuls of straw in the air. Oink, oink, oink. The truck is rolling away, Papa, said Fern. The truck, with no one at the wheel, had started to roll downhill. Mr. Arable dashed to the driver's seat and pulled on the emergency brake. The truck stopped. The geese cheered. Charlotte crouched and made herself as small as possible in the knothole so Avery wouldn't see her. Come out at once, cried Mrs. Arable. Avery crawled out of the crate on hands and knees, making faces at Wilbur. Wilbur fainted away. The pig has passed out, said Mrs. Zuckerman. Throw water on him. Throw buttermilk, suggested Avery. The geese cheered. Lurvy ran for his pail of water. Fern climbed into the pen and knelt beside Wilbur. It's sunstroke, said Zuckerman. The heat is too much for him. Maybe he's dead, said Avery. Come out of that pig pen immediately, cried Mrs. Arable. Avery obeyed his mother and climbed into the back of the truck so he could see better. Lurvy returned with cold water and dashed it on Wilbur. Now throw some on me, said Avery. I'm hot too. Oh, keep quiet, hollered Fern. Keep quiet. Her eyes were brimming with tears. Wilbur, feeling the cold water, came to. He rose slightly to his feet while the geese cheered. He's up, said Mr. Arable. I guess there's nothing wrong with him. I'm hungry, said Avery. I want a candied apple. Wilbur's all right now, said Fern. We can start. I want to take him to the Ferris wheel. Mr. Arable and Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy grabbed the pig and pushed him head first toward the crate. Wilbur began to struggle. The harder the men pushed, the harder he held back. Avery jumped down and joined the men. Wilbur kicked and thrashed and grunted. Nothing's wrong with this pig, said Mr. Zuckerman cheerfully, pressing his knee against Wilbur's behind. All together now, boys. Shove. With a final heave, they jammed him into the crate. The geese cheered. Lurvy nailed some boards across the end so Wilbur couldn't come out. Then, using all their strength, they picked up the crate and heaved it into the truck. They did not know that under the straw was a rat and inside the knothole was a gray spider. They only saw a pig. Everybody in, said Mr. Arable. He started the motor. The ladies climbed in beside him. Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy and Fern and Avery rode in the back, hanging onto the sideboards. The truck began to move ahead. The geese cheered. The children answered their cheer. And away everyone went to the fair. Okay, the next chapter is titled Uncle, and we'll read that tomorrow. See you later. Bye.